What's up, Dragon Brood? Now, we're still in the early part of our deck reveals for Kaldheim, but remember, we're putting out the decks that need upgrades first, and then we're going to put out all the decks that are focusing on new or a pile of new Kaldheim cards. But today, I realized so far we really hadn't put any blue cards in a deck, so we're going to do that today so you get your chance to see Azorius Flyers. But before we do that, please do me a favor, remember to like this video, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, let me know if you appreciate these or not, or if this is the wrong way to go about it, because I'm just trying to help y'all enjoy your magic. Anyway, let's go take a look at this Azorius Flyers deck. Okay, first things first. I want to say that I had a version of this deck last season that actually did okay, but it did lack just a couple of things, one of which was an additional early creature, which we do have now, so that'll help a bit. And we do get a couple other interesting cards that we're going to talk about that actually fit pretty well in this list. But starting from the top, we have Cutcell Cleric. This isn't a card I'm like super excited about, and realistically, I think you could remove one of something else to play a fourth one of these, but right now there's only 3 in the list. But what I do like about it is it does actually tap some creatures that, you know, when you have a bunch of flyers, doesn't seem that important, but I actually have used it in cases against, you know, a random Phoenix that's there, or against Soaring Thought Thieves or whatever, just to get them out of the way to do those last like 5 or 6 points of damage. So, I mean, it's not huge, but that does come into play. Otherwise, it's kind of just a 1/1. It's not my favorite card, but it does fill a role in the deck. Now, the new card we're playing is Battlefield Raptor. I do like Battlefield Raptor quite a bit. It's flying at first strikes. We actually have some stuff that could potentially pump it, which is nice. And it's a 1/2 for 1 mana. Like, that's a lot for a 1/1. The fact that you get flying first strike and a 2 toughness is actually really nice. Randomly works when you want to be able to block a Fervent Champion on those turn 1s, you know, those early turns. Or even just trade with them even on turn 2 when they have like a second Fervent Champ. Like, now you can throw something in the way, trade for one of them, and not be stuck, which helps a lot. Because again, you can expect a lot of people to play the heavy aggro decks, especially the burn decks, early in the season before they've collected their resources or purchased other cards. Going down the line, we have Miscast. This is a new card, or newer card, that we're not really, I mean, I don't know, we're not talking a lot about because it hasn't been great. And I had a different card here before, but now you're in the situation where it's just, you need to just prevent either important spot removal or a sweeper. There's really nothing else you're going to use this on, and that's okay. It's 1 mana. It's easy to leave a mana up to be able to utilize this. So, big fan of it. Don't have a problem with this card at all. Watcherless Figures. This is kind of like the card to play. I mean, the thing is, the benefit to this card is if you have other things that do have colorless mana, you can get to where you can play 2 or 3 things in a turn, and that has a really big impact. So don't want to understate that about this card. It is very good, and it can get pumped, which is also nice. Let me scroll up there so y'all can see it better. But it's actually makes your stuff cheaper, and then when another creature with flying comes into play, it gets a +1/+1 until end of turn. There's several times where you're getting these into being a 3/3 or a 4/4 even. Also in duplicates, they're not bad. So like that card. And it's a 2/2, so it's not like it already starts with just like small size. And then we have Staggering Insight. Playing full set of 4 of these. And maybe I only need to be playing 3, and maybe that's where we find that room for the other 1 mana creature. But I do actually like this card. I think it's one where it can surprise your opponents. Again, if you're in the early stage of the format and people are coming heavy with the aggro, this lets you gain life. It lets you draw cards. It can help you find that other spell counter. Maybe find something like a Brazen Borrower if you just need it in a pinch. Like, it does a lot of work for very little mana. So I'm super appreciative of this card, especially if you have something like, say, the other 1/2 we were just talking about, right? Now you have a thing that first strikes, and it flies, and it gains life, and it draws cards, right? It becomes a real problematic creature for your opponent. Scroll back up to the top here, and we have 3 Lofty Denial. Obviously, if we had a sideboard, I'd put the 4th one in there. Same thing with the Miscast. But here, I mean, all your creatures fly, so your opponent's always going to have to pay 4 whenever you cast this. So no hate about this card. It's just a good spell counter. Fits in here perfectly. Same thing with the Skycat Sovereign. Not something that we are really worried about. If you're playing this list, you just play it. It gets bigger for each flying creature you control, which is everything. So every creature pumps it. No real concern there. It does have the ability to make other 1/1s, which I think sometimes people can get complacent about using that, but I use it quite a lot. A lot of times, especially if you think your opponent's maybe going to sweep the board soon, you just say, okay, well, during your end step, I'm going to remove this creature and make a 1/1, and force them to deal with your stuff on the board or die effectively. Because you're not even just getting 1/1, you're getting a 1/1 flyer and you're getting to pump this particular creature, right? Because it gets a +1 for each other flying creature. So it becomes a thing they have to deal with or just die to things coming out of your graveyard effectively. Then looking further down the list, this Jubilant Skybonder. This is a card, it's from Ikoria. It's not new, but this card actually, if y'all go back and watch the video I put up from, gosh, I don't know, like 2 months ago, this card won more games than I thought it was going to. Like, it is really hard for your opponents to have to spend 2 extra mana every time they want to kill something or target something. And I think that's ignored on this card because people look and go, it's 3 mana, it's a 2/2. But remember, you do have stuff like Watcherless Figures that sometimes it's just going to be 2 mana, and it's a 2/2, and that's fine. If you get multiples, they're super problematic for your opponent. If you get that in conjunction with limbaugh, like that's a problem. Like this card really causes a lot of issues. I wanted to cut one and just play 3, but I kept coming back to the idea of like I remember how well this card did for us. Now, granted, the new format may not be the same, and again, it's arguable in the beginning. Maybe people are playing more creatures and fewer spells. Maybe I can cut one, and then as the season goes on, you can add one back. Playing Brazen Bar, we're playing 3 of them. We could play 4, but again, this is like a mana cost sort of thing that I'm concerned about. But it's just kind of giving us a pseudo removal card because we're not playing a lot of removal. We're just playing spell counters and Brazen Bars and trying to get by on that. And then 2 Linvallas. This card's actually pretty sweet. One of the things I think a lot of people look at Linvala and they always try to think of a way to get a full party onto the table, but you don't necessarily need a full party. You just don't. I mean, getting your team to be indestructible or hexproof, either of those is acceptable. Like you don't have to have all that value. And Linvala's a 3/3 flyer on her own for 3 mana. So it's not like it's the worst thing. Now, you could build this deck in a way that you play a couple of warriors, so you maybe occasionally hit it, but realistically, probably not what you're aiming for. Then back to the top, I guess. We've got a couple of Redane. This is a new card. A Redane, God of the Worthy. For those who don't know, Redane is 2 colorless, a white, 2/3, flying vigilance. Snow lands your opponent control enter the battlefield tap. Non-creature spells your opponent's cast with converted mana cost 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast. So basically this means your opponent tries to Shadow the Sky, Extinction Event, any of that stuff. It costs them 2 more mana, which you absolutely love in this deck. That's not a bad thing at all. Also, your opponent's Snowland's coming into play tapped. Really important. I expect there's going to be a lot of decks that are playing Snow Basics. If they have to play slower because their stuff comes into play tapped, great. We don't mind one bit. And you get a 2/3 flyer with flying and vigilance out of the trade. I think that's something not to be ignored here either. Why it has vigilance on top of all these other abilities, I don't know. But it's cool that it does, and it's only a rare. It's also very easy to cast, being 1 colored mana and 2 colorless mana. So you should be able to play it with very little issues along the way. So I think this card's actually going to be pretty fun in this list. And then we're playing 1 Glorious Protector. For those of you who saw my other list, I have included this in a couple things already. I think this card can be very good. This is another way just to protect your board. Like between Redane and Glorious Protector, you're kind of setting up your defenses. So if your opponent does decide to sweep the board, you have something you can do. And it's flash. It's another flyer. So just in a pinch, if you need a +1/+1 at instant speed, if you need to cast something to their end step so you can attack for 3 more, it's actually not bad. It does have Foretell, but do you need it for Foretell? Probably not in this list, but occasionally it'll be important. But I do just like that in general for this card. It's actually really good for this deck. But again, not adding a lot of new cards to this list, just a couple that are important to protecting your aggressive creatures and can kind of round things out behind your counters, but not necessarily cards that are changing the fundamentals of the deck outside of the Battlefield Raptor. Then we're just closing out with 3 Amarius Calls. Most of the time, these are just going to come into play as lands, but they're just a backup plan, so if the game goes long, you are sticking with the flying theme on that one. Lands, we're not doing anything special other than playing the new Hingegate Pathways, and that's Not a huge ad because you're probably going to play these in another deck. If you like playing white or blue, you're probably going to go ahead and craft these or buy these anyway. So I don't mind including them. Otherwise, it's just Temple of Enlightenment, some islands, some plains, and then just going for it. Though, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think the final list I have for download is going to be -2 islands plus 2 plains. Mostly because our early play 1-drops are white, and you want to be able to get these out early as possible, and you don't want to get stuck with hands where you can't play those safely. So I'd rather have a couple more. The other cool thing about this list, though, if you look at it, outside of a Brazen Borrower, you don't really need 2 colored mana of either type. If you get 1 and 1, you're good to cast just about all your spells. So that's another thing to be excited about. And you get to play a pretty cheap mana curve overall. Now, I know this type of deck tends to have a big fan base, you know, because of previous formats. And I think this gets us closer to where we want to be with it. And you have a bunch of unblockable things. You do get to back up stuff with Brazen Borrower. You do get counters for those key turns on like turn 3, turn 4. Being able to counter, say, like a Great Hinge or an Embercleave. That can really turn things in your favor, especially when you have like Staggering Insight that could help you gain some life back and maybe get you another card to do something. There's a lot of cool stuff this deck can really do. And the cool part is you only need, I believe, 4 commons and 7 rares. So that's not bad. I mean, we're talking about upgrading a deck. That's pretty good. I mean, if you spend and purchase any one of even like the 45 pack bundles or whatever on Arena, that should be enough to get you the wild cards, or very close if you have any wild cards, to putting together this deck at that point. So it shouldn't be a problem at all there. Cash wise, if you just have to go buy cards, the only downside is like 4 of those are pathways, but again, you're probably going to play the pathways in other decks, so that's not even bad to buy anyway. So you're really only buying 3 rares and 4 commons, so pretty good on the budget if you want to play this deck. And if you like playing Flyers, if you like blue-white, like could be right up your alley. I don't know, something to think about. But keep an eye on the channel if you want to see our other decks. Remember to subscribe so you get notified every time I put these out. I have a couple more upgrade decks that we're going to post, and then we're going to start rolling out the just all new decks. So keep an eye on that stuff, and we will be doing a stream at some point over this weekend talking about Kaldheim. We'll do one on YouTube, one on Twitch. I should have that information by early Friday morning and let everybody know when we're going to be getting all that done. But otherwise, in the meantime, that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you on the next one.